What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 470, where it is my honor and privilege to introduce a special guest joining this episode, and that is Cornerstone wrestler George Wilmer. How are you doing, man?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Appreciate you joining. You're actually, I know you already know this, but the first ever Cornerstone athlete to join.
Yes.
So, how does that feel to join this
It's
small podcast?
it's great. Yeah, I'm glad that I can be the first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Someone always has to be the first, and
Yep.
I've really enjoyed, obviously, having wrestlers on, shining a little light on a sport that I don't think necessarily gets as much light as it should. And
Yep.
I'm excited to learn a little bit about your journey, learn a little bit more about wrestling. It seems really interesting. I don't know the whole story, so I'm excited to have you talk a little bit about it.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's just get started out with just how did you start wrestling? I know you started a little bit later than most people, but like, how did you kind of get your start in the sport?
So actually, I the head coach for Forest Hills Northern, where I went to high school. Um, I played football with his son in middle school, and they were always telling me that I'd be great at wrestling all through middle school. Even telling my parents, trying to get them to get me to wrestle, and I always denied them. And they asked me like 4 years in a row, and I finally was like, you know what, let's just do it.
Why did you originally deny them? Was there anything that was kind of holding you back? Was it the sport in general? Was it just not something that you were interested or really thought about?
So fun. It's a funny story, but I didn't know anything really about wrestling prior to joining. Um, I just knew like the uniform, and I didn't like the look of it. I didn't like singlets. I thought they looked weird. So that was stupidly the reason why I didn't originally join. But I'm glad I did.
Good. I'm glad that you did as well. Obviously, it's led you to Cornerstone, but like, what changed your mind? Was it more of like a change of mind, like you didn't really care too much? Was it more of just like, hey, I'm kind of sick and tired of them asking, so why not just give it a try?
Yeah, and I had a couple football friends, teammates that were on the team. So they were all like, "Hey, just try it out." One of the things that Northern does is we do we start the season a little earlier than most programs, and it's very, very basic. It's not actual like we're on the mat wrestling. It's just kind of getting that conditioning in and giving people who do want to try out wrestling the chance to kind of see somewhat of what the workload will be like. Obviously, it gets harder when the season starts, but um, it's nice that like Coach Bucks, who is the head coach, he gives the opportunity for people who have never been a part of the sport, give it a shot and see if they like it.
Do you think that's part of the reason why the sport was kind of like sold to you? Was that little time period of like, hey, it's a little bit of wrestling, but it's obviously not kind of the full, just what wrestling truly is?
Yeah, yep. It was really that, and just really the bond we had with the team.
So obviously that kind of got you into the sport. When did you kind of like start to enjoy it? Like, what was it like when you actually kind of started to put a little bit more, obviously work, practice got harder, you finally got your first match like that? What was that like? That was kind of probably a moment that really either bought you in or kind of made you realize, hey, I don't want to do it, and it seems like it kind of bought you into the sport, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, one thing also that Northern does, that not a lot of schools actually do, is we do a preseason tournament that doesn't count towards any your wins aren't countable. It doesn't count towards your actual record, but it gives freshmen and new people to the sport. They give them the chance that they can actually wrestle a match, understand it, kind of get the feel for it before the actual season starts. And that's always at Lakeview. Um, and I remember my first match, and I got absolutely demolished. It was the first time I actually got picked up and slammed before. but um, it was like it was. I got my first win there too. It was my second match, and I won just by pinning him, put him in a half. But it was really I just really liked the winning, and I was like, you know what? Let's just keep doing this, and um, I really was fully committed by the time season started.
Because Northern does it different than other schools, do you think if you would have went to like another school that like typically just kind of get started right away, like your first match and meet is against another opponent, do you think you would have still probably found your way into wrestling, or do you think kind of just the setup of how they did it was really just made it a little bit easier to kind of find your way and realize, hey, this sport is right for me?
Yeah, so the one thing that I will say, and it's different now. Obviously, I've been graduated for 4 years now, so it's a little different now. But when I was wrestling, Northern's very small. It was always a very small team. We always had, a full lineup, but we had maybe like 3 or 4 guys um, that were either from JV or they just sat bench. And that's kind of how it was all the way up through my senior year. But it gave me the opportunity to wrestle a lot when I was a first year. I got a lot of opportunities. I wrestled JV for most of the first season. So um, if I would have gone to another school, like let's say a big program's Lowell, everyone knows Lowell. If I would have gone to Lowell, I don't think I would have actually gotten into the sport just because of how big their wrestling team is. I mean, they have multiple different teams, and they have A, B. I mean, they have an amazing program, and don't get me wrong, Northern's program, we're good, but um, we don't have their numbers, and I think I'm very grateful for that because I don't think I would have seen them at my first year.
And obviously, with being a smaller team, with having less people, but still being a good program, you obviously have kind of the buy-in from the people that are on the team. Even though there's not a ton of people, there's probably that support for each other. There's probably that camaraderie that like everyone that joins the team, like they want to try to keep them on the team so that they can have a full roster. They want to make people feel belong, and I'm sure that was another huge key point for you, is that you probably felt like you belonged and that you were a contributor, and that even though you're new and you're still learning, like you probably had people that were pushing you, people that were helping you just kind of understand what wrestling is, but also as you continue to go, like still like push you and kind of get closer with everyone throughout that process. Your first year, obviously, your second and third year at Northern as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially like my first year. Like I said, I I wrestled varsity every year except for my first, but I did good on JV. Placed at conference, which it's JV, but I was decent, and my wrestling partner, who I wouldn't be where I'm at without him, from him pushing me and honestly beating me up in practice. But he was always the starting 103 because that back then after I graduated high school they changed the weights to 106 and whatever it is going up, but it used to be 103. And my wrestling partner Caleb Fish in high school, he wrestled 103, and we would always go back and forth trying to get the starting spot, but he would always beat me when it came down to it. But I got the first chance at the conference tournament um, for Northern. We wrestled. I think it was Eastern. Force was Eastern. I was my first varsity start, and it wasn't actually 103. It was 112. So I wrestled up a weight class.
What was that like in your first start on varsity? Getting to kind of experience that, was it a little bit intimidating? Were you kind of like ready for that moment, kind of preparing for that moment because of Caleb pushing you throughout that time? And like, how many years were you able to practice against each other? Was it like 1 year? Did you kind of eventually like work your way up to where kind of the match between you and him was pretty close?
So going to that conference tournament, right? It was I wasn't expected to wrestle. We were, I mean, 10 minutes prior to I didn't even warm up with the team because I was on JV, I didn't even warm up. And 10 minutes prior, Coach Bucks, he throws me a singlet. He's like, we're going to have our 112 go up to 119, and uh, I'm going to be wrestling 112. And I was like, 112? I've never wrestled 112. And one thing about me is I was always lighter. Until my senior year, I was always lighter for my weight class. So he had 12 pounds on me. If Yeah, I would say 12 pounds on me. And I won that match, and that really solidified, like, yeah, this is my sport. Like, I'm gonna stick with it. But me and Caleb, I want to say we went back and forth, but really he was a way better wrestler than I was. Um, he always was. He was a year below me, so when I started my sophomore year, he was a freshman, and obviously when I was a senior, he was a junior. So he was my wrestling partner all through my high school career, every day, and every day was always painful. Let's say that.
Yeah, but even though it's painful, like you even said at the introduction of talking about Caleb, like you're not here without him, and you
Oh
don't
yeah,
have maybe the moment of going up a weight class, getting kind of that first moment that you're like, hey, this sport is for me. And I think that's a pretty cool, not only moment, but also kind of getting that win when you go up a weight class and you're wrestling a guy that's like 12 pounds heavier than you. And some people might say, well, that's not a ton of difference, but in wrestling, it can very much be a big difference. And when you kind of had that like opportunity, and your coach said that, what is it like wrestling someone that like different of a weight class? Like, did you kind of have a certain mindset going into that match that you remember? Was it more of just like, hey, you know what, this is an opportunity. I'm just going to work as hard as I possibly can, and if I win, great. If not, then I lost to a guy that was 12 pounds heavier than me.
yeah. That first match, I was definitely scared. It was my first varsity start, so I was definitely scared and I wasn't prepared. But because the following year, my junior year, I wrestled 112 pretty consistently. I don't remember really any tournaments that I didn't wrestle 112. Even in duels, I wrestled 112. So I was just always strong. Like I just always in high school there wasn't someone that was necessarily stronger than me whenever I wrestled. So I think that gave me a really big advantage. They may have weighed more than me, but I've always been someone that, I mean, I can throw my weight around. So I never really had a problem with it, especially in high school.
Yeah, which is obviously a nice advantage for you, is having that strength to use to your own advantage. But I'm sure probably it was another step up for you going from wrestling JV to wrestling varsity. I'm sure there's probably quite a big jump, and even though there is that jump, you did end up winning that match, and it just kind of obviously ended up leading to just the start of a long journey of a couple of
Yeah,
years left in high school, and then obviously at Cornerstone, where you've been wrestling for the last couple of years as well.
yeah,
So obviously we talked about how like that moment was kind of when you decided that the sport was for me. After that moment, obviously you have your couple of years, you wrestle. How did those couple of years go? Even though like it was a sport for you, did you ever like over those last couple of years, did you ever think about like, hey, I want to continue to do this, or was it more of just like, hey, like it's the right sport for me, but I don't know if I can or want to do this in college?
yeah. So moving up to my junior year, really kind of the first year that I was like, I kind of went in confidently. Obviously, you don't go confident into any new sport when you first start out. But I spent that whole entire summer between sophomore and junior year doing wrestling camps and training and just getting more familiar. So I came in pretty confident. I wrestled pretty decent. I didn't go to regionals. I almost did. I wrestled 112, so I was up a weight class. I lost in the blood rounds and districts to go to regionals. I was about to tech the kid, and I remember he was from Rockford, and um, I had him. I was going to do an Easton tilt, and I got caught, and I to this day I still don't understand how I got caught. Um, but he turned it around, pinned me, and kind of gave me motivation for my senior year. But it was a great year. Did great. We had a little bit of a smaller team. After my sophomore year, we didn't have a JV team. Um, we do now. Now, I go back to in the room and we have a big old JV team and it's awesome. We have a full lineup. It's actually really cool. But back then we didn't. And like I said, junior and senior year, we had maybe 3 or 4 other guys that just didn't wrestle. And if they did, it was because the starter was sick or hurt or something. But going into junior year, we had a couple of it was Northern's first time in a while we had a state qualifier, and it kind of gave the team a little bit more confidence. And he wasn't my weight; he was 141 or 145 back then, but kind of gave the team confidence. The team did really well. We wrestled in conference and we lost to Lowell in districts. Senior year comes around, and I finally got my start at 103 because my junior year Fish cut like 20 some pounds just to make 103, and he ended up going to state for it. But I still couldn't beat him. I mean, now it may be a different story when we hit the mat, but back then he would dominate the match if we wrestled back then. But so wrestled 112, and then finally senior year wrestled 103, and yeah, it was great. Honestly, I was so confident the whole season. I mean, we do the preseason tournament every year, and I asked coach just to wrestle in it, just for the fun of it. I went 5-0, just so I get some more matches. But it was
Yeah.
always just a great time. I felt really confident. I was wrestling really good. I only lost a handful of times my senior year, and honestly, most of them was postseason. And I mean, key factor in some of the duels. So, yeah.
And I think it was awesome how like your mindset and kind of your journey changed after getting pinned right before regionals, because it's one of those things that you have the opportunity to take it one of two ways. You could have the opportunity to use it to motivate you, use it to push yourself, use it to get better. Or you could have the opportunity to say, hey, this happened, it's unfortunate, but maybe it's just not meant to be. And you see athletes on both sides of the spectrum on that. You have people that quit, you have people that decide to motivate themselves. And
Yeah.
for you, it really seemed like you learned from that, even though I'm sure at the time you probably weren't super happy, probably some devastation to that, to building that confidence to your junior year, to your senior year, to being a really good wrestler and not giving up when it's in a time that you could have very easily given up and just say, like, hey, like, I was controlling that, I lost, like, it's just not meant to be. This is not my sport. But I loved how you took it the opposite way, and you're like, okay, like that sucked, but how can I improve from this? How can I get better? And how can I use this as motivation?
Yeah, I mean, especially from losing in districts, um, I definitely my senior year, like I was not happening again. I was not gonna let that happen, and I put up some really good numbers. I couldn't tell you what they are. I would have to look them all up, but I know I only lost a couple of times, and I wrestled amazing in districts. Went to regionals. Didn't have. I don't. I honestly. I wasn't mentally there at regionals my senior year. Unfortunately, um, I didn't check out. I just think I got too much in my head when it came to wanting to win districts. That when I got there, I was like, I think my mind kind of shut out, and that didn't realize that like, hey, we still got regionals and I mean states, and I didn't wrestle well at regionals. Overall, senior year was amazing. It was some of the wrestlers I wrestled were really good. and I got, the ones that I did get beat to, they ended up becoming, state champions, state placers. Um, but I never really gave up a big loss in, really in high school in general. Um, I was always like, coach always put me out and kind of always had that confidence of like, all right, looking at 112, this match is done. George got this. And especially senior year, that was like a really motivational piece for me. Is like I knew he had confidence in that, and it gave me confidence, especially when we had a very solid lineup my senior year, and our lower weights were really strong, and we were a powerhouse. So it was good.
And that's just the great thing about confidence is what confidence can do for someone. If a coach fully believes in you, if you have the confidence yourself, there's that motivation, there's that confidence, there's that ability to perform well. And I think your whole story, especially with regionals, is like it kind of goes back and forth with confidence. It's not because you didn't have confidence at regionals, but I also think it kind of talks more about what wrestling is because I feel like a lot of people look at wrestling and that like have ever done it. Maybe people that have done it maybe look at it a little bit different, but like people looking on wrestling, they're thinking a few things about wrestling. One is that it's a very physical sport. They don't think about the mental side of things. Number two is what you're thinking when you were getting asked to join wrestling but said no is
Yep.
wrestlers look weird, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's just kind of what they're thinking, and a lot of people don't realize that while it's extremely physical, the part that is really important isn't just the physical part, but it's also the mental part as
Yeah.
well. And I think kind of the mindset that you had from districts is that hey, we achieved what we wanted. So like in your mind, it's more of like, hey, we already did this, and then you just kind of check out. And I feel like that in itself just makes the sport not only mentally difficult, but also it's a grind, right? Like you
Yeah.
talked about how difficult the practice is. You talked about the 3 periods. Like you're wrestling for 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes. Like it's
Yeah.
really, really difficult, and it's you and one other person.
Yeah. I mean, the sport itself is extremely challenging, and I will say I say it all the time, especially when I get asked like by anybody, whether it's when I do youth stuff, like if it's a kid or even people that are not familiar with the sport, like it's extremely challenging, and it's not for everyone. It really isn't, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that like the people that do wrestle and the especially like starters. Like if you're starting, whether it's let's just stick with high school. Like if you're starting on a high school lineup, um, and it's hard, especially like I only had a few people that would challenge me for my starting spot my senior year, but it wasn't anything challenging. But if you go to like Lowell or Rockford, like they have good talent and they have multiple teams. So if you're at Lowell and you're wrestling on the A team starting at let's say 103, well you got that B team 103 pounder trying to challenge you right before a tournament, that Thursday before that Saturday tournament. He's going to challenge you. And it's a weekly thing, and you have to keep that in mind, and you have to perform and wrestle your best in practice. You can't take reps off. And even at Northern, Bucks doesn't let you keep. If you're, coming in there and just want to go through the motions, he does not take that stuff. You will run, and it won't be just you. He'll make the whole team do stuff. And he doesn't mess around with that, and that's how coaches need to be. If you want to have a great program and you want to have great wrestlers, you have to be tough on them. And yeah, it's mentally challenging. I'll even say it like every year, even in high school, and I'm in college wrestling. Every year there's at least that week of the year where you're like, I really want to quit. I really want to be done. I could be just working, making some money, or what, I could be hanging out with friends, or I could be home watching a movie. Like, you can make up all the excuses. And you have to mentally check yourself back in and be like, hey, I'm in season. This is my goal. This is what we're going to be doing. And you've already, like, one thing that helps me, especially now that I'm in college, and one thing, even in high school, is I've been through it. It's going to be fine. If I could do it last year, I can do it now. And I have a wrestling partner right there with me that is in the same boat. And he's not quitting, so I'm not quitting. And that's just how I've always been able to mentally check myself back in when I do have those moments. Because every wrestler has those moments. If you talk to a wrestler and they don't, they do, whether they want to admit it or not. And honestly, I think it's 60% mental and 40% physical. Because wrestling's physical. That you genuinely have to mentally not give up in order to be physically strong. And to give your all physically, you have to mentally be like, okay, let's keep going, let's keep going, let's keep going. And I mean, that's in practice and in a match. And that's why, like, my senior year, obviously not going to states my senior year, like, it was a big blow to me mentally. And because I didn't really think about college, and like I knew I was good, but I didn't like think about college until after that tournament. So really after after my season was done, I started thinking about college, and obviously I didn't go to college right away. So I was really disappointed with myself, and I'm like, I could have done a lot better. I should have been mentally checked in, and it all worked out, but it was rough.
Yeah, it's definitely a humbling sport. Like, it's going to be a time of where you might have a ton of success and then you might have a letdown. We've
Yeah.
seen some of the best wrestlers in college ever have a letdown, especially in NCAA. Like, there's a reason why the sport is so difficult, and it's all about obviously how you respond to that. And sometimes it might take a little bit longer to respond to it, but it seems like even though you had that disappointment your senior year, didn't end up going to states, and maybe didn't have a typical path to college wrestling, but you did end up doing it, and you end up getting the opportunity to wrestle at Cornerstone, and it's just not your typical path. But talk about how the opportunity kind of came to be, like how you end up deciding to wrestle after wrestling was done, how you end up even at Cornerstone when maybe probably for a time period there it didn't seem like wrestling was in your future.
So I think this is funny, and some people don't believe me when I say it, but it's true. I live right by Forest Hills Northern and Cornerstone. So I grew up in the area, and I never really realized that Cornerstone was so close. Like, in high school, my senior year, we wrestled team conference at Cornerstone, and I went 1-1 that day. But I never really thought of it, like, I didn't know they had a program first off, but I didn't really even think about it for a school. I originally wasn't going to go to college because obviously I didn't have any offers, and school is always difficult for me. Um, I tried my best, I gave it my all, but I always struggled, and I do in college too. Um, but never really like was that kind of person that, like, hey, let's do 4 more years of like school, which you already know you struggle in. And um, so yeah, I didn't go to college. After the wrestling season was over, I ended up playing rugby, which was just, it was honestly just for the fun of it. And after that season was over, I really just started helping out Coach Bucks in the room. We would do summer stuff, run some summer camps. We do open mat, which I think is amazing. You don't have to pay for anything. It's anybody in the area. So we'll have people from Rockford, Lowell, all over. I mean, even people from like 2 hours away. They'll come just because it's free. And you just get in, you get a good workout in. You're actually wrestling. You do some conditioning, and coach always has something fun for us, whether it's dodgeball or something. And I would always help out with that. Like, I wanted to continue wrestling, and I got involved as much as I possibly could. After graduating high school, I started working full time And Coach Bucks kind of had me come along for some tournaments. I coached every day in the room for the most part, trying to just help out. Obviously, Caleb Fish, he was a senior, so it was fun to wrestle him, but also just like to help out because we did have a lot of incoming freshmen that year. And I spent a lot of time outside of like open mat and even outside of their season because I coached and went to tournaments and all throughout their season too. And I would like Wednesdays, I would get out of work a little earlier and I would work with like a couple of freshmen at the time and we would just roll around, work on some technique. And it's kind of what I still do now when I have time. Like if Coach Chris, who is my college coach, if he like says, "Hey, we had a good tournament. It's a Monday practice. You guys take the day off." I wouldn't necessarily take that day off. I was always up at Northern and working with them. It would be a lighter workout, obviously. If Coach Chris is giving us the day off, I'm going to use it to my advantage. And but I still wanted to get a workout in, so I would do live. But when it came to technique, I would just kind of walk around, help out, demonstrate a couple of moves. But it was really just kind of a weird period in my life. Not outside of wrestling, just kind of figuring out what I want to do in life, but also like, what do I do now that like, hey, my wrestling career is over and it's kind of settling in now. But I remember one night after work, I never checked my email. That's one thing about me, and I'm still terrible about it. But I checked my email one night and it was around 11 o'clock. It was the weirdest time to check your email, but I got a email from Chris Williamson, head coach at Cornerstone, and he introduced himself. Hey, we have a program that's growing at Cornerstone, and I'd love if you could come by for a practice. And now this was like, it was first semester of college, but it was like halfway through. So like their season already began. School's already started. I can't commit. I can't even go to school, and I'm not going to come second semester. I don't want to start that off because then graduation 4 years later will be off. It's a whole thing, and I wasn't 100% set on even going to that practice. I was like, this has to be a joke. This has to be like, where'd he even find me? Like I know I was good in high school, but I wasn't every year Georgia's placing fourth or placing third at state. I wasn't that type of wrestler. But he saw me on a long list of guys, and I came to the first practice. I'll never forget it. You walk into that building, and it's a different environment. Cornerstone's a different environment, and everyone is smiles. And I honestly didn't think it was real at first. I come from a Northern, which is like, you mess up on the mat and the whole team is dogging you on it, right? And it's all fun. It's all of my high school teammates, they're amazing, and I still keep in touch with most of them. And but it was just a different environment. I'm like, this is awesome. And immediately everyone comes up to you and like wants to get to know you. Where are you from? What weight you wrestle? How old are you? Like all the questions. And went to practice after work almost every single day when I could. I ended up to stop coaching because I was going to Northern for practice every day. I ended up stop going there and just going for like the weekend tournaments to help out their JV team, and stay kind of connected to Northern. But I went to practice at Cornerstone every single day until their end of their season. My last practice was right before they went to nationals, and actually the first time that Trevor Marsman placed at nationals and the first national placer that Cornerstone's ever had. So it was a great experience and new environment, but it really I would say probably after 2 weeks of going, I was like, it just feels right. This is home. And it was like I fit in, and the coaching staff was amazing. I mean, we have amazing coaching staff. And it was really like, wow, this is a family. It's not a team. This isn't like a, hey, coach-player relationship. We're all a family here. If you got something going on, Coach will listen to you. He will tell you his advice, and he'll help you out the best you can. And you got teammates right there with you that are like, hey, how can I help you out? What can we do? Right? Everyone there are the nicest, and they're all really great. Now that I'm part of the team, I have met some amazing men. And it just, I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't get enough of it during my gap year. I couldn't. I wanted to do everything. I went to their home duels. I probably irritated Coach Chris. Honestly, I probably irritated him because I was always in the room, whether we had practice or not, or if they were away at a tournament. I was in the room. Coach kind of gave me that access, and I was in the room working out. And I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't get enough of it. And once I had the chance to commit, I committed. And yeah, it's changed my life I'm not going to say the good, but it definitely put my life at a whole nother direction than just working in a warehouse full time. So glad I did it.
Exactly, and some people might be listening to your story and they might say, no way that's true. Like, no way the whole thing is true. But it almost kind of seems like a situation. I know that Cornerstone is a Christian college. I know that faith is extremely important to you. But it almost seemed like a situation that like it was meant to be, and you just didn't know it.
Yeah.
And like for one random time, let me just check my email, and there's just there, and then that leads to another opportunity, that leads to another opportunity. Like, you find a family, you find a team, you find a situation that made you feel like you belonged. And while it's not the typical story, it's kind of like it was meant to be. It just took a little bit longer than you thought it might take.
Yeah, I mean, especially like just the jump from like high school and like relationship wise, the jump from high school to college. Obviously, in college, you can have people going for their fifth or sixth year. You can have married. I mean, currently we have a couple people that are married. They have families or they're engaged. It's a different environment when you're freshly 18 out of high school and you're coming in there and you're like, whoa, hi guys. But I mean, the best thing that really caught my eye was the coaching staff. I have a great relationship with my high school coach, Coach Bucks, and I still keep in contact with him. And in high school, he was a big mentor of mine, and obviously he still is. And that's what I was really looking for. If I ever went to college for a sport in general, I I wanted that connection because I mean it makes you want to be around the team more and around the sport more, but also like it's a sense of family. It's a sense of like, you know what, this is where I belong. And I felt that coming into Cornerstone. We have our coaching staff isn't really that old, but they're all amazing men. And they're very wise in the sport and amazing people. And that really like got me to the point where like I got great teammates, but I also have a great coaching staff that know what they're doing and have that experience. Like Coach Chris, he used to coach at Liberty, and I think he has a couple of championships under his belt with them before coming to Cornerstone. Because the team when I first started coming around, not when I committed, but when I first came around my gap year, it was their second year. It was their second year as a team, and looking back now, it's a whole different. I mean, practices are different. Even just how the team, like the wrestlers that are going to be seniors this year, they're completely different wrestlers. But it was great to like come in there and be like, hey, I got my butt kicked, but I got my butt kicked by someone that could be my teammate and who I can learn to. Because I mean, my whole high school career, I got my butt kicked, and look where I am. Back then, there were practices where I'm like, oh, please don't kick my butt, please don't kick my butt. But now, Oh, I'm so happy for it, and I tell everyone that you need a wrestling partner that can do that, and that's what like committing to Cornerstone. I was excited. I was excited to learn because Trevor Marsman, who he just graduated Cornerstone, and he was a three-time national placer, um, and I believe three or four time conference champ. And he's an amazing wrestler. Amazing. I mean, top tier. And wrestling him, wow. Especially like when you come in from high school wrestling to this is what college wrestling is. Yeah, wow. You can't take a shot on him. You can't do anything. You stand there and you just, with a blink of an eye, you're pinned. But it was great, and I was looking forward when it came, after committing. I was looking forward to my freshman year.
Yeah, it's almost like a full circle moment for you, right? Like you started out where you're struggling, you're getting your butt kicked, and then you end up going into your junior senior year having success, and then guess what? You're back to, I don't want to say square one, but you're back to the same point you were when you walked in and getting your butt kicked and making you better and pushing you, and obviously that's what made you better before Cornerstone, but that is also making you obviously better right now, and I'm sure that you've grown a ton. I'm sure that you've had some really great like highlights, and we'll definitely talk about those highlights. But what was it like when you finally like committed? When you finally went through the whole process? When you finally started practicing officially on the team, and then also getting the opportunity to walk on the mat for the first time representing Cornerstone?
Yeah, well, since I wasn't new to the team, and Coach Chris will say that, like I was treated like I was just already part of the team when I committed, and we have all these freshmen that come in and for their tours that they're like recruits, and they get all the fancy pictures, they get the gear, they get the practice. Some of them if they can they practice with us, right? I didn't get any of that. I mean, it took. I think I got a T-shirt. My first T-shirt was after I committed, which was almost a year of being unofficially a part of the team,
Yeah.
and so I didn't get anything really special. And I didn't. I mean, obviously, I don't. Wish I did. I don't really need all the fancy stuff, but um, I was. It
You
was
have it
already.
now, though.
Yeah.
You have
Now
all that
now
stuff
I do.
now.
Yeah. Now I do. But back then, I was just happy to have a T-shirt. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I'm gonna be wrestling in college. And after I committed, it was great. It made me want to work more. I was always in the room. Like I said, I probably irritated the crap out of Coach Chris trying to get in the room all the time. And I would text him all the time like, hey, is the room open? Hey, is the room open? Even in the summer, because he moved to Michigan, obviously to coach at Cornerstone. So I was always texting him, whether he would respond or not. I probably irritated him to the point where he didn't want to. But going into my freshman year, like I said, I was already part of the team. I already knew everyone. Everyone, it wasn't anything like, hey, who's this guy? I was well known, and I wasn't anything special. No one, like, I never got the, special, he's an incoming freshman, treat him nicely. Team was already picking on me. We all pick on each other. So, um, I had a sense of confidence going into my freshman year, especially when we had our first team meeting. Um, and our first team meeting is really just to get everyone in the same room. And it's the first day of school. It's the first day of classes, and coach gets us all in a big old office, and we sit down. He talks about a couple of things, some rules, kind of standards, goals that he has for our team, what practice really going to look like, and it was great. I got to see all the freshmen at the time, and yeah, I meeting went well, and after that, it's just the season just kicks off with preseason, and I didn't know really what to expect, especially with preseason, because when I first started coming around the team, I was halfway through first semester, so it was just regular practices. So I had an idea of like how practices were going to be mid-season and how they were going to be once postseason hits, and I knew how that was, but I had no idea what preseason was. So that stuff I was a little worried about, and that was, very eye-opener experience. Very like, whoa, this is not high school. And even the workouts, I mean, Coach Chris, he tries to do different things in preseason. Obviously, you have your conditioning, obviously, you have your lifting, but we do like team retreats and team trips where you don't know where you're going. And he has a whole plan started, and he does practices geared to mentally, like they're supposed to mentally break you, and there are also ones that are supposed to be physically, breaking. He wants to see where you are and how you react to when you are exhausted and can't pick up another weight, or when you think you can't run another mile. He wants to see that, and he wants to see how you react. And that, I mean, that's just part of being in a college program and being a coach in general. You have to see where all your guys are at. And it was hard. I will say that was a very rough preseason. Looking back, it was fun, but just the memories out of it. Like, for instance, I have one of my best friends in college. I met him. He was a freshman on the team, and we bonded instantly. And he was actually my wrestling partner pretty much consistently all through my first year of college. And his name is Aiden. He's a amazing guy, right? And we kind of bonded, and especially going to tournaments, it was really fun because we got really close, and we still are very close. But we got close, and we were always like, we're gonna room together. We're gonna kind of go at it together. So it was nice. Like I had someone, that was in it with me. We're gonna get through this practice. We're gonna do this because it's rough. I'm gonna be real honest. Like there's a reason why not all high school wrestlers, football players, baseball players, whatever sport it is, you don't always go to college for it. Whether it's NAIA or D2, D3, D1, not everyone makes it, and there is a reason. And it's not like high school how like you can join and you're gonna, if it's not for you, you can leave. Like obviously I've seen tons of people in high school quit, but in college you don't really get that. My freshman year we had a couple guys that didn't make it through preseason. It got to two-a-days and they couldn't handle it, and they left the team. And that's kind of how Coach Chris has his program. Is he designs it so that he doesn't, like, there's nothing big. There's not like media day or team anything, or like you get the big look, you get your name on the locker. Like he doesn't do that stuff until you get past all that stuff, and there's a reason. And it's a big accomplishment. The team, obviously you're not going to get like a gold star on the team for making it through preseason, but I remember being a freshman, and I had a couple of buddies that were also freshmen on the team, and we celebrated making it through. I was real happy about it because I realized after preseason that when I started coming around my gap year, I kind of started around that time. And it was like, I know what's going to go on. I know how these practices are going to be. They're going to be brutal, but I've been through it. Even though I was a recruit, I went through it all. I didn't take reps off. I was there to work, and very much treated like part of the team. If George was slacking or not, you not putting his all into practice, Coach Chris would tell me. He would yell it on the mat. That's why I said like I wasn't anything special once it came to like meeting all the freshmen. Team. I was already part of the team, and it was great experience. Looking back, it was great and it was fun. And going to hitting the mat for the first time. Our first tournament was actually first on the schedule was actually a duel. It was against GV, and that was amazing. We got to meet Dan Gable, and which if you know anything about wrestling, he's I mean, one of the best. Um,
Yeah.
Iowa legend, but he came into our room. We got to meet him. I got, you know, we got team pictures, all of that with him. But we wrestled GV because he was starting. He starts up new programs now, and GV was one of
Okay.
them. So it was at GV, and GV has a really good program if you know anything about them.
Yep.
But I didn't wrestle. Honestly, most of the freshmen, besides like two of them, started. Everyone else sat bench. So but it was fun to watch. Fun to, you know, obviously you get to warm up and it was really cool being like, this is my first, you know, college match and like I'm warming up with the team. It was cool, right? And my family was very proud. But going to my first actual time wrestling in college, it was the following weekend in Pennsylvania, which that was a fun bus ride. We got a big old charter bus and honestly, that looking back, that was probably my favorite tournament that I've wrestled in so far in college. That was my favorite, just because of the fact that it was just a lot of like, I mean, it was 12 plus hours in a bus, and you know the laughs, the jokes, the stories from coaches, like it was fun, and we wrestled at the Messiah Invitational, and it was definitely different, bigger, bigger. You know, high school tournaments they can be big, but it was a lot bigger, and so it was a lot. I remember like looking around a lot and being like, "Whoa, what's going on?" When I first walked in, and didn't wrestle great. I didn't get my first win, but stepping on the mat, it was really, really cool, and it was a really like I made it kind of moment for me. Um, and the team did well. That was another great part about it. We had a couple of champions that day, Trevor Marsman being one of them, and I think we had our heavyweight at the time win that too, and someone else. But it was really a great experience, and it was really like this is all. I remember being almost on autopilot, which doesn't sound good. And looking back, I wish I would have been more focused. But I was so like, this is awesome. Like this is like I made it. And like I mean my family came down or came to Pennsylvania. They traveled, got a hotel, and just to see my first match, which was really amazing too to have that. Um, Especially, you know, like when you're in high school, of course your mom's going to be there and your dad. So it was really important to me to have them because they're really like especially my mom. My mom's one of my biggest supporters. So it was really important for me to have her there, and so I was very happy that she did. Um, I didn't wrestle well, but um, it was a great experience. And yeah, I mean, even just going on from that, like I at Cornerstone, I wrestle in invitational or open tournament every weekend. I haven't yet, you know, I'm going into my junior year and I haven't yet started in a duel. I'm hoping that that changes this coming season, especially since we have obviously our starter's been Trevor Marsman, who's obviously, you know, was one of the best on the team. But with him graduating, who knows who's going to start? I think it's only me and one other person. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to it. But I wrestled every weekend all the way up until now. I wrestle every weekend, and it's amazing. I mean, freshman year, I mean, the amount of people you see. I mean, the amount of wrestlers you get to go against and get to like team wise, and you get to witness there's good wrestlers. And I always say it like NAIA, yeah, it's not the big D2, big D3, but NAIA is tough. It's tough in general. Yeah, it's kind of on, people say lower end, but it's really not. I mean, we wrestle in the following week, actually, after my first tournament. We were in Iowa for a D1 tournament. Like, and we wrestle it every year. And we will wrestle in D2 or
Yep.
D3. We wrestle everybody. And so that was another eye opener, especially that D1 tournament I wrestled in. And it was my like second start. Like it was my second time hitting the mat, and I went 0-2, but I wrestled freshman backups of I think it was Iowa State and well, it was Arkansas maybe. I could be wrong, but still D1 wrestlers, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really eye opening. And honestly, that jump is it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's really like, and it's not even mentally. It's physically. Everyone's top tier. You're not going to wrestle someone who this is only their third or fourth year in the sport. You're going to wrestle people who've been doing this their whole life.
Exactly, and that's what the jump from just high school to college does. Even though you're in the NAIA, like
Yep.
even though some people might think it's the lower end of things, like it's that jump, and it's about making you better. It's about wrestling better opponents, and you talk about and have kind of that memory of your first time ever wrestling in a tournament. You got to have your parents there. You got
Yep.
to have them support you, and I know that's going to be something that you're going to carry on for the rest of your life. Like even though you didn't necessarily get your first win there, it's all about getting better. And I'm sure over these last 2 years at Cornerstone, from the wrestler you were prior to Cornerstone and the wrestler you are today is probably dramatically different.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
not only because you got better, but because like your technique, because just like the way you wrestle has to change. Because I'm
Yeah.
sure that if you wrestle the same style, the same technique that you did in high school, you're not going to get better. You're not going to be
Yeah.
able to beat some of these guys. Like it's faster pace. It's more mentally difficult, stronger as well. And I'm sure that over those tournaments that you talked about, you obviously learned that. I'm sure that you're still kind of working on your approach that you have, but it's just kind of part of having an opportunity to face some teammates like you have that are really good. And now you get the opportunity headed into kind of the more back half of your career, which is probably weird to hear, but you're halfway done with your career. Like
Yeah. Yep. It's
how's
scary to
that
think.
feeling? Like how yeah, scary to think, and just like how much have you kind of like grown, and like what are some of like your goals you want to accomplish, and just like these next couple of years, like this is a really big year for you. You talked about
Yeah.
how the guy that was in front of you graduated, and now you have an opportunity to take that starting spot.
Yeah. I mean, it's been amazing. Cornerstone is I'm so happy with the decision I've made and where I am and the people that have came into my life, not just because of wrestling, but just because of my decision to go to Cornerstone in general. It's really, I mean, I wouldn't be the man I am without that decision. And I I genuinely think that going that jump from high school to college, I think that there's a lot of, especially like if you're not going like, obviously if you're going D1, D2, you kind of know what you're going into, right? But like if you're going in NAIA or even D3, like you really, I don't think that, like I know in my life, no one really prepared me for it. I had nobody that really got me into like no one gave me that like hey you should try to reach out to this school see if you can wrestle at that school. Like I never had that. I'm the first wrestler in my family, so this is everything that I've ever experienced with wrestling. That's the first for my family too. So it's like even wrestling tournaments, I mean it's different. um, and obviously with being the first one in my family, no one really knew the sport and like kind of knows how it's all supposed to be done. Obviously, my parents know now, but it's different. And when I did make that decision and kind of where I'm at right now, I'm a different wrestler. I'm completely different. And in high school, like I said, I was very much, I mean, wrestling up majority of my high school career at another weight, like my strength wasn't a problem. So I used it to my advantage. And when I finally got to wrestle 103 my senior year, I did amazing, but it was because I was so strong. I look back and, I look at my footage of some of my wrestling matches. And yeah, I had some really tough matches that I had to pull through and win to place at a tournament. Because I placed my senior year, I placed every single tournament. I placed third or higher every single tournament. And that I'm very proud of. That's a very big accomplishment, and being able to stand on that podium after a hard weekend of wrestling is great. But some of the kids that I wrestled, I could easily pick them up, and I had my couple of moves that I was confident and I liked to do. I liked to do, in high school it was always the double leg, and I would set myself up for that, pick them up, flare their legs right on their back, pin them. Or I would do a fireman's, right? Catch them and pin them. I was very much a pinning guy. I honestly think I only got one tech my whole high school career, one or two, and um,
Wow.
which is crazy. It's a crazy stat, but obviously I don't know the full numbers, but it's around. It's not. I don't think it's five. I think it's lower, but um, so going to college, it's different, and I had to switch it up a lot. And I'm grateful that I got to come around the team before committing during my gap year because I learned that very quickly. I learned that wrestling Trevor Marsman, Jeff Bailey, who's another 125 pounder. I learned that wrestling them very, very quickly because you can't do any of those on anyone, especially a double leg. You're not going to get that unless you are Jordan Burroughs, who is, he has that blast double down. You're not getting that in college. You know,
Absolutely.
no, if you go against a good wrestler, which everyone in college is a good wrestler, you're not going. It rarely will it work. And I had to learn. Like obviously, it's not like those were the only moves that I did in high school, but they were one of my main ones. So I had to switch it up. I had to learn a lot, learn, to perfect different moves than what I did in high school. And that's mostly why I was in the room and why I probably irritated Coach Chris, calling him and texting him to unlock that door because I didn't have a key. I didn't have an ID on campus because I wasn't a student yet. So I didn't have the access to the room unless coach would allow me in. And I was always in the room practicing, always. And I still am. I still, I am not where, I'm not the best college wrestler. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say have a winning record. I don't. I've gotten my butt kicked in college, but I've loved every second of it. And I'm a good wrestler in college. I'm not bad, but I'm not the best. And in college, like that's okay. In high school, I made it to the next level. Obviously, yeah, I have some, I want to have some goals. Like I want to win a big home duel. I want to go out there. I'm 125. I'm the first weight to go out. I want to walk out there, and with a big old home crowd, and I want to tech a kid, not even a kid, a guy. I want to tech a guy and win or pin somebody, right? Like I want to get that win, right?
Yeah.
I want to be able to place at some tournaments, right? And obviously, I'm a long way from it, but I'm working. Their goals, who knows if they work out, right? But you're going to keep on working for them. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and even like just switching up my style, like I'm completely different. I never scrambled in high school. I don't know if you know what scrambling is. It's basically just getting in weird positions and trying to move your body in different ways to get leverage on your opponent and take control of the match. It's basically a going back and forth in a match between who's going to be able to get out of this weird situation first and take control of the match. And in high school, Coach Bucks he's very much an old school wrestler, which is awesome. That means that he's tough. He's going to make you work really, really hard. And I've had people actually one of my teammates now, Thomas, he wrestled at West Catholic, and we would join practices in high school together. So I'd wrestle him in high school a lot, and he tells me now, like, oh yeah, Coach Bucks's practices, they were the hardest. Everyone said that in high school, but he worked on basics. He's very much basic, basic, basic. There was no scrambling. You didn't get into like weird situations, right? But honestly, even in college and just wrestling in general, if you know the basics, you're going to be good. You're going to be just fine. If you can master those, you're going to be
Yeah.
just fine. But at lower weights in college, everyone gets into some sort of a scramble at some point. And I didn't know how to scramble for the life of me. And I honestly, I think right now I'm a pretty good scrambler. I've spent a lot of time on it, and I've spent a lot of time on getting in goofy positions and reacting, because that's what scrambling is. It's just reacting. And I've gotten pretty good at it. But I've also had to change up how I wrestle. I can't do double legs. You know, you come into my freshman year, and that whole year was me figuring out that, you know, maybe you need to switch it up. Maybe you need to do, single leg, like I do now. You know, I started working on that a lot. You know, working on single legs more, working on how to finish an actual single leg without like, you know, in high school you get the leg up right and you can kick his other leg so he falls. That doesn't really happen. You know, you go against a really good college wrestler and he's not going to let you do that to him easily. And if you're not really confident with the move, he's not going,
Yeah.
obviously it's not going to work. So it was really just perfecting different moves. And if it really wasn't for one of our assistant coaches, Coach Eli, I'd wrestle him a lot in practice, and I still do. So he's a smaller guy. I mean, he probably weighs like 140, but like he's a smaller guy. He wrestles with the lower weights a lot, but he's good. Talk about a scrambler. He is amazing. He can get out of any position, and you won't win any position against him. But he's really good at like the technique aspect, and wrestling him, I always looked forward to it because I would always end up learning. Even if we were in like going live, he would always stop and be like, "Hey, you're gonna do this," and we would do it a couple times. We'd be like, "All right, now let's continue wrestling." And it's one of the things that I love about him and love about all of our coaches because they do very similar things. And um, you know, if I didn't have a lot of that like leadership and those mentors now in my life, I wouldn't be the wrestler where I am without those people. Like without Trevor Marsman, without Jeff, without Coach Chris and Coach Sam and Coach Eli, without all of those people coming into my life and coming into like just my wrestling career, I wouldn't be where I'm at without them because they wouldn't have pushed me. I wouldn't have had someone to push me.
Yeah, and you talk about like your learning. You talk about the time that they put in. You talk about like stopping. Hey, let's work on this, and then let's kind of get back into wrestling. You also talk about kind of learning how to scramble. It's almost like you need to become comfortable in an uncomfortable position,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the more that you do that, the easier it obviously gets. And it seems like you've learned obviously a lot. You still have a couple of years left to go, but you've also learned a lot from teammates. You learned a lot from coaches. You learned a lot from the past, from your current coaches. And speaking of learning, one of the most important things is just kind of how not only like what you learn in the sport helps you in the sport, but also kind of the impact it can have outside of the sport because you understand what it's like to not be a wrestler. Like you were helping out, you were coaching, you were kind of practicing on the side, but like you kind of got a little bit of the taste before going to Cornerstone. So overall, like what are some like the most like important like life lessons that you've learned from wrestling? Like is it about giving it your all? Is it about the team? Is it about relationships? Like I'm sure that there's probably a ton of stuff that you can take away from wrestling that obviously you can apply towards wrestling, but you can also apply it towards life as well.
Yeah. You know, like I said, wrestling isn't easy. You know, everyone should know that. If you don't know anything about wrestling, you should know that it is extremely hard. And
Yep.
um, going into the sport and where I am today, I'm older, so a lot more mature, but also like I'm a lot stronger as a person mentally and physically. And when you're in, especially when you're in season, like you're exhausted. Like college, you're exhausted. I mean, to a point where like I'm gonna sit on the mat after practice. After at Cornerstone we'll pray after practice. I'm gonna sit on the mat and rest for maybe 5-10 minutes before I have enough energy to go hit the showers. And like you're exhausted every day. And one thing for me, for example, I work. I have to, after practice, I go to work. So like, it can be mentally, challenging, but it's what makes you grow. It makes you grow into the person, and you learn. Obviously, like me, balancing work, school, and wrestling, time management. You know, and obviously I'm not perfect, but you learn how to balance that and how to balance also like, if you're in a relationship, having friends that aren't wrestlers. My teammate or my old teammate Aiden, he's not a wrestler anymore. He doesn't wrestle. He's still my best friend. We still hang out. You still have those connections with people as a athlete, whether it's wrestling, football, whatever. You have your own life. And yes, there's the saying that, wrestling is life, or, my life is all wrestling. Like, yes, that is true. It very much is. You really, whether you practice or put in effort outside of the actual practice, it very much is life. But it teaches you to balance life outside of the mat. And
Exactly.
how being a wrestler and having, to overcome being tired, having to tell yourself that nope, I'm not going to quit. I'm not tired. I got 2 more miles to run, or I can do at least 10 more sweep singles. Like doing all of that in practice mentally and not giving up and physically being able to overcome those challenges, um, because that's an everyday thing. That's in every practice in college. You are like you have to have that conversation to yourself in your head while you're at practice. Like, nope, let's do this. Come on, we're not giving up. Let's keep going. Especially when it comes into practice and you're going live. Live isn't just like okay, let's you know just go through the motions. You have to make it like an actual match, or you're not going to get better as a wrestler. You're just not. And that's wherever you're at, college or high school, middle school, wherever you're at. If you're not going to give it your all, then why are you there? And
Exactly.
that's how you have to go about life. If you're not going to go to work and you're not going to, you're just going to sit there and not do anything, or you're just going to, stand and say hi to customers when they walk in. Like you have to give it your all. You have to, whether you're not feeling it or not. I've gone to practice and I've been dog sick. I've gone to practice and been tired. You know, I've also been to practice when I am excited to be at practice and fully energized. I've been all over the place with emotions when it comes to going into practice. And you leave exhausted no matter what, and but you leave accomplished. And that's how you should feel after, you work really hard on an assignment at school, or you work really hard at your job and you get a promotion, right? Because like you put in the hours, you've done all the right things, and you've put in the effort. That's how, wrestlers are. I don't know a wrestler who doesn't have that quality, because it's so mentally and physically challenging that it shapes you. It shapes you into a hard worker, regardless if you're on or off mat. It also it makes you into a better person. You have to work extremely hard all the time. Whether you want to, whether you're a wrestler that is just doing it because you happen to be good at it, or if you're a wrestler that is good, but you want to go college, or if you're in college and you want to go Olympic, you have to put in the hard work, and it will definitely show outside of it, outside of the room. It will show in work. It will show at school, because you can handle pretty much everything in life. You can handle all the hard stuff, and wrestling's such an amazing opportunity for young kids, whether you start in high school or you start in middle school or even younger, it's a great opportunity to grow, and you meet so many people, and you grow as a into a great man, as Coach Chris would say. You grow into a great man, and that's the mentality. He's you at Cornerstone. The one thing that I love about it is you they're shaping you into a like good husband someday, and but also great wrestler. You're gonna get better in college, but Coach Chris, he wants to make you into a good man too. He's not gonna you're not gonna leave practice or leave the season and not improve better. Whether it's something you recognize in the moment or not, you'll improve every day. And you know, wrestling is it's one of those sports that it helps you in the long run, and you won't notice it while you're in it, but you will after. And one thing that I'm grateful for that I've kind of learned is to be grateful for the moments that I have now, that I'm still in college and I'm still wrestling and I still have a year or so. Like I'm grateful for the fact that I have the opportunity to you know recognize what like how good I have it right now. And I'm really looking forward to, after college, and, how what I do today shapes me into the man I will be then. And, wrestling is just, it's such an amazing opportunity for young kids to grow in like being more disciplined and grow in maturity and being able to, you know, suck it up when life gets hard, because that life isn't easy. Life is hard, and wrestling really does teach you that. It doesn't teach you exactly like, oh, wrestling's going to make your life hard. Not like that. It's by going through those hard practices and mentally having to say like, hey, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I just got taken down. All right, we're going to get back up and we're going to do it again, right? And that's how life is. You get taken down, you have to get back up. If you don't get back up, life will eat you alive. And wrestling teaches you to get back up, and it teaches you to get back up, but not only but also be able to take it on strong, right? Being able to be like, okay, well, that's not going to happen again. That's what wrestling teaches you. And it's an important life lesson that it really is. It's an important lesson, but it's also like something that I'm grateful in my life that I've learned through wrestling. Because I honestly, if I didn't wrestle, I don't think I would have learned that as early as I did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like that is a big reason why people should wrestle. Like, that's not only things that obviously helped you in life, help you grow as an individual, help you become the person that you are today, but it's also the other side of things where it's like what wrestling not only did for me, but what wrestling can do for other people as well. And it can have that type of impact. And while it is difficult, while it's not right for everyone, there's still that group of people that can really impact, and it seems like it's obviously impacted your life. And I know you got 2 more years left at Cornerstone. I'm sure you're really excited about that. I'm sure it's going to continue to grow you as a person, continue to grow you as a wrestler, and I'm sure that's another thing that you're really excited about is continuing to see that growth not only within yourself but everyone on your team.
Yeah. Yep. I'm so grateful for the people I have, coaching and teammate wise. Everyone there is amazing, and not only on the mat but off too.
Exactly. It's a sport that, obviously, like you talked about, it's a sport that brings you together as a team, brings you
Yeah.
together as people. It's a difficult sport, but it's a sport
Yes.
that will make you stronger.
Yep.
And I think you are a definition of that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining. I know that there's been a little bit of technical issues,
Yeah.
but hey, we've gotten through it. It's been a ton of fun. One thing that I always say to everyone that ever joins is if you ever want to come back on, you're absolutely welcome to. I'm sure we have a ton more that we can talk about. Would love to have you back on the podcast, but really appreciate you joining. Really hope you end up achieving your goals. Wish you the best of luck in the next couple of years. I know you're really excited for this upcoming season, hopefully battling for a starting spot there. And then, yeah, just wish you the best of luck and really appreciate you joining.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And that is a wrap to episode number 470. Thank you again to George for joining, and tune in to the next episode.